Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 61 of Underexposed, our weekly macro show, getting all the biggest topics and trends impacting crypto and broader Web3. Today is Tuesday, February 10th. Folks, the bottom fell out since the last time we were together. Bitcoin hit 60K, ETH 1,700, tokens down 10 to 20% across the board. Retail seemingly hates crypto based on the Super Bowl ad reactions from Sunday. The bear market vibes are engulfing the timeline. The question is, are they here to stay or just temporary? We're going to talk about it on today's show. I'm your host, Tyler D. I got my co-hosts in the house. First up, D's rocking the Rect hat, which is quite apt today. GM, how you doing?
Doing good, man. I feel like we could be wearing this hat every week, at least when the show starts. So easy choice today. Glad to be here.
Need the Rect and evergreen color. But maybe I'll go shopping for that one. Peter,
yeah, they need like a matcha drink or something. Let's give us a darker green.
Oh, Ovi, hope you're listening. I think that could go over well with your drink audience. Folks, we've also got Peter Jennings in the house, founder of several companies, still hanging out with us every Tuesday. Jim, how you doing?
Jim, excited to be with you guys. Not as excited about the crypto markets, but we'll get into that and everything else that's going on from an investment perspective.
Excited to dig in. As always, a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. We're live on X and Kick. Go ahead, give us a follow, give us a subscribe over there. All of our live content can be found on Kick every day, every week. We also got some Yeet giveaways coming. So we'll do one Yeet giveaway at the end of today's show. I'm pretty sure Charlie will pop up the code on the screen. I think we're doing bronze tier today. So if you're eligible, go ahead and enter. What are we talking about? We're going to start with macro. We got to talk this crypto sell-off. We'll talk about macro stocks, AI, the CapEx spend, perhaps dampening. Mag 7 rally, maybe not. We'll talk this Coinbase ad, some pretty rough reactions from retail. I do want to get into Hyperliquid with D's. We didn't really have a chance to dig into it last week. One of the more interesting tokens out there. I have a personal trade decision I'm trying to make, so I want to go through it with him. And then these new tokens are launching at much lower valuations. Maybe a positive for more room to grow. So we'll talk about that and a whole lot more. Before we get started, as always, a quick disclosure. The opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the speakers and do not reflect the views or opinions of any organizations they are associated with. We are here to share insights, provoke thought, and maybe even stir some debate, but this is not, I repeat, not financial advice. While we talk about markets, investments, and trends, remember, your financial decisions should be made with the help of your own research or with advice from a licensed professional. All right. Well, let's get into it. I will fire up the screen share for those who are in the stream. And, well, I guess the good news is we're not selling off live during the show, which we typically do every Tuesday.
Yeah, we front ran it.
But yes, we front ran it. Last Thursday was indeed Black Thursday. Markets just totally, the bottoms just fell out. Bitcoin went all the way to 60,000. ETH, I think 1,700 was the low. Sol went to 69. I think maybe even lower on some exchanges. Then Friday, we got the relief bounce. Bitcoin right back at 69,420, down 9% since last week's show. ETH at 2024 is down 9% from last week's show as well. Solana down 16% at 84. So looking a little rough. We're well, I guess, at this level, we basically have erased the Trump pump, maybe slightly ahead of the Trump election back in November, but certainly down nearly 50% from all-time highs. I think more folks calling for the bear market. I think more takes for it to last here for a while. In macro news, I think on the stock side, and the biggest has been Mag 7 companies releasing earnings, and CapEx spend is through the roof. Some of the big names selling off on their CapEx numbers, but seemingly rebounding. So the markets are kind of taking it in stride. Peter, I'll toss it to you. I guess what's top of mind for you here this week? Kind of like, what are you watching? What's jumping out in mid-February here?
Yeah, more conviction kind of than I've had on some of the macro themes. Obviously, there's so much going on. I feel like this administration and kind of what we've seen in the last year, it feels like, in a week you have like months worth of action. But I think the overarching theme that I have conviction on now is the impact of AI and kind of what we've seen with Claude and the Opus 4.5 and now Opus 4.6 is the belief in what the reality is now with what this AI can do. It's really going to impact jobs, which we get that report. I hope I don't have these slipped. I believe we get the jobs report tomorrow, and then we get
Oh,
CPI on Friday.
yep.
So my view is that we're going to see inflation go down. AI is such a huge deflationary force. Um, I think that that's going to be overwhelming. And obviously now we have Washington, who is an inflation hawk. So my view is inflation is going to go down and unemployment is going to go up, which is really concerning for the K-shaped economy. Um, I do think long term it's going to be a huge productivity boost, and we could see some amazing things for society. But we're going to have to navigate this short term challenge where a lot of people are going to get laid off, and we're already starting to see that with these companies. You look at the earnings calls, obviously the CapEx was the main headline, but some of the other things like Amazon continues to reduce their headcount while having revenues go up. And I think we're going to see that with a lot of companies that are beneficiaries of kind of this AI and robotics theme. So to me, that's the major trend that we're seeing. And I think it's going to just continue to play out. So I'm thinking rates are going to go lower, given that we're going to see unemployment spike. Job openings have been weak. So that's an interesting spot to be in. Generally, this would mean you'd want to own assets, which I think has kind of been a broad thing that we've talked a lot about here on the show. But yeah, I'm really trying to think through how I want to position it. My assumption is that we're going to see really weak employment numbers and less inflation. I think those are kind of the main macro themes. And then in addition, which is correlated, obviously, is the CapEx from these, the Mag 7, which to me, there's a ton of merit. Every waking hour that I'm not with my family, I'm trying to be working with these AI tools. I don't know how you guys stand, but I'm just so obsessed with Claude, and now Codex is pretty interesting. There's just so much you can do with these tools. And I think knowing that these are the worst they're ever going to be makes me really optimistic about what we can see in the, assuming we don't blow ourselves up or we don't have a Terminator situation.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It's very exciting, and still, I have to find time to pause, just to kind of come up with the right ideas and focus sets, because it's easy just to start running on different things and start going down the path, build something out. But like, is that what you are you really going to take that through to the finish line? Because I think a part of it is it's easier than ever to build these apps, right? Like, I mean, you can build a finance app, you can build a health app, you can build a food app that scans menus and picks out the healthiest option. So if you want to go through that process, I think there's also this question of commitment. Like, so are you gonna? The next is like are you going to do the vibe marketing aspects? Like, are you actually going to try to distribute this, or are you just building apps for your own personal use? And if so, that's fine. But I think that's kind of a decision point that I've had to find myself dealing with. Peter, I'm curious. I mean, are you mostly are building personal tooling? Like, have you started thinking about like anything for like consumers or external facing? Like,
I've thought a lot about that. I have friends that have built some really cool things that are now live and starting to do well. So I'm certainly interested in that. Um, the personal tooling and some of the things that I've been able to build are helpful to make money, which is kind of why you'd build something consumer facing. So I'm really focused on things that will help me as a speculator, both in prediction markets, traditional markets, and private investing. So that seems like a really good focus. I'm starting to see some real fruit from the work that I've done, and I'm really excited about some of the things I'll be able to continue to iterate on. So we'll see. I could turn some of those tools into consumer-facing things down the road. The challenge is you put something online, it's so easy to copy these things now. So it's really hard if you're going to try to build, something. What is your moat? What can you do that is sustainable and durable? It's a challenge. So I'm still just kind of in exploratory phase, trying to make my life as a speculator easier, try to, increase my edge, which to me, this is just kind of a golden age from that perspective. So it's incredible what you're able to do with these tools, and now all the open claw and people having agents doing work 24/7. A lot of my friends have built really, really cool systems where their output has gone up exponentially. So I really thought the last All In podcast was excellent. They talked a ton about Gerstner's talked a ton about just kind of where software is going. David Sachs had some really interesting points. And I think the most profound thing he said is that his mental model on AI has changed. He used to have the model kind of, I think it was, I can't remember. Basically, his model was, AI was never going to be end to end. It was kind of be in the middle here, right? And that humans would have to prompt the AI. But now, with what we've seen with OpenClaw, these AI agents might be able to do work together and come up with ideas together, and you won't necessarily need prompting. So that's a huge shift from kind of where we were before. So it's a hard time to just kind of wrap your mind around everything that's going on. But I'm trying to do my best, and it feels like there's so much happening. And I think the last thing that's relevant, all of this is so interesting, and this is why crypto is just not getting a bid, is that there's so much more interesting stuff than what's going on in crypto broadly from my perspective.
Yeah, I think that is certainly a part of it. Although the big looming question is, are the agents going to turn to crypto rails for payments? And if so, does that lead to the next wave? And I think there's a real chance that they do, but that verdict is certainly still out a bit.
I found the quote that I was trying to, is Balaji, and I just don't want to mispronounce his name. He said, AI doesn't do end to end, it does middle to middle. The new bottlenecks are prompting and verifying. And David Sachs said that was kind of his mental model, and that certainly was my mental model, and that's what shifted. So that's really important going forward, and what the capabilities are. And I do agree that these agents, and I do think that there's still a huge case for crypto rails being a great medium of exchange for value, and stable coins are going to be a huge part of that. So I'm still optimistic on certain things, and there's certain sectors and certain companies that I adore in crypto that we'll talk about, but the AI kind of shift is certainly top of mind for me.
Yeah, and rightfully so. Certainly an exciting time. I want to come back. You mentioned inflation going down, jobs also going down. So, and you mentioned prediction markets, right? So have you looked at these Fed rate cut markets? So we're 17% to get a cut in March, 27% in April. Feels a little low to me, especially April. Have you looked at any of these very hard?
Oh yeah, I have positions on that rates are going to go down, especially on the front end of the curve, both in traditional markets and prediction markets. I think you can go a little farther out if you want less uncertainty. Like June 17th, go to that market. Like this one, I think is more interesting for like 50 bips. Maybe, and that's the other thing too, is there's probably easier ways to do it than just straight prediction markets, because we don't know when these are going to actually come to fruition. I expect the rates to come down on the short end of the curve, and Warsh is going to come in, and who knows? I mean, it's hard to speculate exactly when this will happen, but I don't mind if I were to make bigger bets on prediction markets, I'd do the earlier stuff, just because I think this week we could get really, really like surprised on the inflation side, it being softer, just much cooler than expected. And then I think this jobs report could be quite bad, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, Trueflation has been showing some insane numbers. And granted, Trueflation is not the core metric that the Fed uses, but it's been fairly leading, I would say. They got down to 0.68%.
That chart is right, though, to me. Just kind of what I'm feeling and what I'm seeing. Really trying to get as much data as I can. I just see inflation going straight down right now. The only thing that could change that in the short term, and that maybe is somewhat priced in and expected, is we're going to get tax returns. I assume we're still going to get some form of helicopter money from this admin, especially to kind of the lower quartile of people in the economy here in the US. So that will be helpful because they're really struggling, and that could boost inflation to a degree. But there's so many deflationary forces specifically with AI that I think the trend is definitely going to be going down.
I think that makes sense. Dee's maybe pulling you into the convo here. I guess maybe we can talk crypto a bit. As a former director of vibes, how are the vibes? Is this as bad as you've seen them in recent memory? We had the fear and greed index go down to 5, I think, last week. What's your read on the situation?
I don't think it's as bad as I've ever seen them, but I'm also not in bad positions like I have been in the past. Like, for me, the worst is still 2018, that like November, December dump from like 6 to 3K, and then the COVID crash where we thought, if BitMEX didn't unplug their servers that we were going to go to zero. So this is like maybe third worst I've seen it. But then when you look at the prices, they don't really match up. Like, I mean, outside of the new stuff that is trying to raise at like $1 billion and launching under 100 million, I think like the price of Bitcoin and ETH is still generally kind of high compared to the sentiment. So I think I tweeted last week, I think we're like in the denial stage maybe of the bear market, where
That's
people don't want to admit it. But I mean, maybe there's a case to be made that last week's fuckery is a good low too. I still think we're probably closer to denial. But I mean, there are pockets of interesting things, like all the AI stuff. Sure, we'll talk about Banker and stuff like that, but there are like some interesting pockets to pay attention to. Whereas in like, I don't know, in 2018, I don't feel like there's anything really interesting going on. Like the most interesting thing in 2018 for me was like preparing to fucking buy Tezos to stake it or bake it for 6%. So I think what we're doing now is more interesting to what we were doing back then.
Yeah, I mean there were parts of 2022.
Yeah, even then I was like
this stretch pretty.
Yeah, I was selling NFTs to live off of because we closed down fractional. Or that was in the beginning. That was more 2023, but there's grim times around then too. But I still feel like there was more hope. Now it's like Peter said, all the attention's on AI. So even if there is hope, it's like, well, why don't you just have more hope for the shiny new things that people are playing with?
And maybe we can segue, and I do want to get to Banker here in a minute, but I think one of the bigger stories, and it was kind of lighthearted at the beginning until you like get deeper into it. It's like we had the Coinbase Super Bowl ad on Sunday. It is the Backstreet Boys song, karaoke lyrics on the screen, everyone's singing along to it, and then it flashes to Coinbase at the end, and it's just audible boos, and then flipping off the screen. It's not just this one video. Like, hey, there's like dozens of videos, and then even to the point where Morning Brew is tweeting out, "This seems to be the universal reaction." And at first it was funny, and then like I started asking the questions, like, does retail actually just hate crypto?
Yeah, I think so, dude.
I think so. And I don't think I quite realized it until that they hit me over the head with these videos. And what does that mean?
Got to build something that they value, that they don't think of as a complete scam. And I don't know if you put the Coinbase branding on anything, if they're going to think that.
It's tough. And I know, Peter, one of the things, kind of long running themes is, we need to build more, meaningful apps that people use. And I think one of the terms that Brian Armstrong used, he was talking about his ad, economic freedom, permissionless finance. That is still like the primary foundational core use case for crypto. And I think the reality is average retail user doesn't need that use case, right? Their bank account works just fine. Their banking apps work just fine. Folks in other countries, perhaps a different story. But are they just never going to come right? They're going to come along for speculation at periods of time, and then if they get rinsed enough times, then they're out. But I don't know. I'm kind of struggling with what gets them back in the door, right? And like we talked about that a little bit with Logan on FOMO Hour yesterday. Like what is there for retail to get excited about, other than the primary use cases? And it seems like it's a question that we've got to try to get the answer to if we want to get them back in the door. Peter, curious if you've thought about that, or if you saw these reactions, anything kind of going through your mind on the retail topic.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple things that are clearly working, Hyperliquid and Lighter, and I think perps are a better way to speculate on assets than options almost always. There are certain situations where you would prefer as a speculator to use options, but I'd say 90% plus, if you have a view, it's easier to express it via perps. And one thing we're seeing work in a huge way, which gives me tons of optimism to own, right now it's Hype and Lighter that I like. I prefer Hype still, but the commodity trading, I mean, specifically what we saw with silver and gold and copper, now the stocks, hopefully we see more and more private companies come on chain at some point in time. That is super exciting, and that will create a ton of value for people, especially if we can ever get real liquidity and accurate pricing for some of these private companies. There's some real hurdles there, but that is something I'm super excited about. So I think both those companies, and specifically, Hype being the leader now, they've found true market fit. They're real companies with real revenues, and it makes sense to own them. So that's really exciting. In addition, stablecoins are something we're all excited about. It's really easy here in the US to just take for granted that you can, use dollars from Venmo or your bank account, credit card, whatever, and get things. And you don't really have to worry about, your purchasing power changing overnight. Whereas in other countries and other places, that certainly is a challenge. So I do think we'll see more and more stablecoin apps and just different things where people can exchange value. And I think stablecoins are going to be a huge part of what's, not just the crypto ecosystem, but the worldwide economy. So those are the two use cases I'm still super excited about. There's still some things in DeFi I think make a lot of sense. Digital gold with Bitcoin I think makes a lot of sense. But outside of that, I haven't seen much other than, the casino, which is crypto has proven to be a great casino. So maybe you still want to own Pump for that reason, which I think is another one we've talked a lot about. That's certainly an interesting asset. And maybe meme coins just are here to stay as, kind of a different form of a casino. My issue with the meme coin game is that a super small percentage of players extract all the value, which makes it really hard. But that's common in peer-to-peer games. So those are the sectors I'm thinking about. We'll see how AI interacts with all of these. I think stable coins is where AI is really going to do or have the biggest impact. But curious your guys' perspective. Right now, in terms of just like how I'm thinking about my crypto portfolio, mostly in the basis trade, still Bitcoin, Hype, Lighter. Those are really my only real position. And then, of course, the punks. That smile, Hype smile, just stares at me every single day. So
when you close your eyes at night, is that the last thing you see before you fall asleep?
I feel really good about how I maneuvered broadly through this cycle, and then I just look at that and I'm just like, man, that's just greed personified.
If that's the worst mistake you made all cycle, though, that's a pretty good cycle comparatively to. I mean, last cycle I lost like $500,000 on farming blast and stuff. So like, if my worst mistake this cycle is top blasting a punk, like it's a good cycle, assuming I sold other things that went up.
I'm just waiting for one of Peter's open claw agents to personify itself and take the punk. The
pipe smile. Yeah, it's just like Tibber, but it's Peter backwards. I don't even know what that is.
Just like Alex Finn's agents are starting to come up with names and pictures for themselves. Well, I want to talk about the hype trade, Peter. You kind of went there, calling it one of the more exciting tokens, protocols, themes in crypto, and I think it's pretty spot on. Deej, you've been in the trade pretty deeply. Last week, I was having hard thoughts sitting down, Should I sell? Like my primary holdings are still largely Bitcoin, amongst a couple other things. I was looking, and I don't have any hype exposure. And I was thinking, like, do I sell a meaningful chunk of Bitcoin and rotate to hype on a long term time horizon trade? And then I slept on it, and like the next day is the day it actually spiked to 38. And of course, I'm like, oh shit, I missed the window. It has since sold off back to 30. So the hype Bitcoin ratio hit an all-time high. Now it's back down. It's still near the top of the range. What's given me a little bit of pause is I've been following these HIP3 volume numbers very closely. And I think this was a part of the recent rebound rally was this volume soaring, and it just fell off a cliff these past 3 days. It's a small sample size, so I want to see this play out a little bit. But this did give me a little bit of pause. And the other thing that's giving me a little bit of pause is, Peter, you're still touting lit, the lighter token. And these, I think maybe you're in the light token as well.
About a little bit.
And I'm not convinced they both can perform well at the same time, at least in a bear market.
Yeah, I bought lit more based off of Will Price's dashboard that he vibe coded that shows the premium we're paying for hyperliquid revenue versus lit revenue. And obviously I think that premium is compared to like people's perception of how sticky each revenue is. But when I saw that, I think when I bought it, it's trading like a 3x premium or something. It's down a little bit since. It's just like, I don't think the premium should be that large. So even if I'm holding a bunch of hype, like hedged a little bit with lit, not a lot. The other thing I like about lit is the whole, if you buy 50K lit, you can stake it, you could put 500K in LLP, and then eventually you'll be able to use that as collateral to trade with. I think that mechanism makes sense. And I don't know if I'll use any LLP as collateral to trade with, but I like that optionality, and I think that kind of makes the lit token a little more attractive, assuming they have similar successes past months with LLP, which I think over time outside of like 1010, it's been pretty good. So yeah, I bought a little bit of lit, but it was it was more of a hedge on hype, like looking at it as the whole perp dex bet. I don't know for the HIP3 volume if we're seeing just a decline, because it feels like maybe there's actually I just looked at silver, it's back to 81. I was looking at silver going into the weekend, it was back to like 70. But I was wondering if like I don't want to say collapse of the metals, but like the price going down is just making people not trade them as much. Because when we were looking at that volume last week, I remember the open interest compared to the volume was like crazy different if you were to compare like Bitcoin. Like I remember the open interest for silver was like significantly lower than the open interest for Bitcoin, even though maybe volumes were similar. So like a lot of those, volume metrics were short trades. They weren't like people holding positions with long time horizons as seen by the open interest, not really getting close to what the large crypto tokens are. So it doesn't surprise me to see that volume drop off hard.
Makes sense. I mean, I didn't realize the Lighter's still doing 50% of Hyperliquid's volume on the month.
Yeah, I'll link you Will's dashboard. It's a mouthful, but I'll just throw it in the chat so you can see what the hell I'm talking about.
And it's trading at 1.4 billion FDV. Hype's trading.
Oh, the hype premium now is down to 1.6. So this premium is very volatile because both the prices are down, but hype is down more than lit, by a bit. So the premium went down. If you go to the top right, the crypto and RWA tab is what I'm looking at. And then that middle number where it's basically showing you the FDV of both the 24-hour fees and then what percent of, comparison between them.
Interesting. All right. So Lighter, 5% of Hyperliquid, 24-hour revenue, 8%. All right. So
yeah, and it changes. This is like, obviously it's like changing every day. Because it's just pulling the 24-hour fees. But
Is lighter still okay? So this is based on revenue. All right. So this,
Yeah, it's not based on volume as much as revenue.
Peter, you're still a user of both protocols.
I am. I'm using Hype more. I have a pretty big position in lighter that is delta neutral. So I guess I am directionally long, but right now you're getting about 9% to stake lighter, and you can hedge that by being short perps, which is quite good. It's probably one of the best delta neutral trades out there. So that's I've been hanging out there for a bit.
The biggest risk, like you have the 3-day unlock if you want to get out of that stake token.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
The doomsday for me would be funding flips massively the wrong way on lighter, and then you're stuck kind of holding the position, and then you have the 3-day unlock.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. It's not terrible unless funding just goes absolutely silly, which I don't.
By the way, the funding rates have been ridiculous. I mean, I had a Bitcoin and ETH trade on for a while, and the funding rate on Bitcoin was horrendous for like a couple days.
Like horrendously, meaning like you were
like
getting
you were getting paid a lot to be long, paying a lot
yeah.
to be short. Negative
That makes
funding
perfect sense.
back to kind of normalized, which is good news, but still.
So I mean, I'll ask maybe the question directly. So you hold both Bitcoin and Hype, I believe, fairly large positions. In which do you see one strongly outperforming in 2026, or like on a 1 to 2 year time horizon?
Yeah, I think I mean, if I look at my own portfolio, I have more Hype than I do Bitcoin right now. It's maybe close, maybe like within 10% of the liquid crypto portfolio. Personally, I feel like I'm so biased to want to say Hype just because of the last, year, 2 years of performance. And Bitcoin is just so much more boring to own. Like my gut says Hype, but I still feel like I have to own a lot of Bitcoin anyway, just as like a person in the space who thinks that that's like the safest store of value. My problem is when I get into Bitcoin and punks. Like that's where I start. The other day when Bitcoin was a punk was getting close to 50K, I honestly was like, "Fuck, I maybe should swap a Bitcoin for a punk," and I didn't do it, but I still think like that too much. I'm like, okay, yeah, like Bitcoin store value, punk is store value. Punk is a more volatile store value. If Bitcoin goes to 30K, I wouldn't be surprised if my punk is 20K or God forbid less. But Bitcoin goes back up over 100K, I would think my punk likely to be over 100K. So I'm still working through that because with the hoodie, you have such a premium punk that it doesn't equate to 1 Bitcoin. It equates to, I don't know. My hoodie in my head is like 10 Bitcoin at current prices, if not more. So it's hard to accurately
Right.
figure out exactly how I want that spread to be. But yeah, it is close to the point where like I'm holding Hype for revenue, fundamental stuff. I'm holding Bitcoin because it's, digital rock, store wealth. And I want a lot of both of them because I feel like once you get to a certain point in your portfolio, you're not necessarily trying to take bigger risks to hit like 10 to 20x's. Like holding a bunch of Hype in Bitcoin is so easy to sleep at night. I don't really stress about it at all. I get to like spend time with my kid and not stress about the charts. And that's worth more than trying to eke out whatever potential extra gains I could.
Well, 10x's, that's what we hold tokens like Banker for.
Banker, yeah, that's how we bought Banker. That's why I bought some other stuff that is way lower market cap than Banker that has not got up 10x yet.
We don't have to get into those, but even in what was a terrible week.
Oh, Banker did great for a terrible week. My thought process behind Banker last week was Tibber was sitting at that 150 million floor. Banker was getting a ton of adoption and hype. And I just thought, like, I don't have any really reason to own this Tibber when Banker exists for, I think at the time Banker was like 50 mil or something. So started just sold the rest of my Tibber, put that into Banker, and then put a little bit more into Banker and a couple other wallets. And it's been easy to hold. I feel like the the dev is super active, and that always makes me happy, like when I'm on Twitter and the dude's building in public every day. But yeah, you can see some of the hype from that initial last week run is dying off. So they did announce that they're making their own launch pad and cutting out Clanker. I think that announcement was why it pumped last night, or it felt like that was why it pumped. But yeah, I think it's the most interesting ecosystem token that we've had this year. And it's been around for a while.
Yeah.
It's not like it just came out this year, but it's finally the combination of just the right things going on with the right products available. Now it's getting attention.
I think this is one where, like, the old adage that like luck is like preparation meets opportunity or something along those lines, right? Like this team has been building in public and working on this app for over a year. Token's been live the entire time, and then they were in the right place when this latest OpenClaw AI agent explosion happened on chain, and it turned out that their launchpad made sense, and they're leaning into it. They're adjusting their fee model, the revenue. They're going to have more revenue coming, and I like that personally better than like, okay, you have a new AI agent launchpad that spins up, right? That anyone who's half decent can vibe code in an afternoon, and we have seen those, and most of them have floundered, while Banker has been the primary benefactor. And it sold off a bit so it had made that run to 100 million. It was kind of chopping in that 60 to 80 zone. When Bitcoin went to 60, it sold off to 35, and that was the buy. It doubled, and basically it rebound doubled in a day. It chopped the weekend at 55, which is where I entered. Disclosure, and I am a bag holder now. And then it's doubled since then. So I got a nice little 2x on this one, which was...
Yeah, I actually sold a small amount, a little over 100, just to remind myself I can sell these things. Just like I think I sold like $5,000 worth, like a amount that I didn't care if I sold it, but I just wanted to sell it to tell myself like, hey, dumbass, just remember you can sell these things. You have a kid in the other room. That's something I feel like I have to do sometimes. But yeah, I'm still holding by far the majority of my bag to see what happens. 'Cause I do think, like Peter said, this narrative of AI making everything better and people just thinking about this day and night, I don't think that's going to shift anytime soon. And it could definitely shift attention away from Banker into other AI tokens or just stock crypto in general. But like, I do think as long as that is a predominant narrative in society, then at least while this token is getting the revenue and adoption, it's very interesting. And 100 million market cap versus like, I mean, we just saw the Penguin get to 100 million. It's like, yeah, I think this Banker thing's a little more interesting than the Penguin.
I'm trying to find this.
I did Kelly Claw, like, 180 the conversation too, but Peter mentioned just being bullish on stable coins, and I always go back to like, how the fuck do we as normal plebs with access to the same markets everyone has access to make a good bet on stable coins? Because I don't want to buy Circle and I don't know what options I have. So I was curious if Peter made any stable coin investments or has any ideas on how to put on a better trade for stablecoin. Because I mean, we just saw even Dan and Varun from Farcaster, they just left to join Tempo, Paradigm stablecoin chain. And that's something that none of us can get access to. I just saw that Layer 0 today got investment from Tether, like it was 4 hours ago. And then Layer 0 has a big announcement in 4 hours. And people keep postulating that they're making their own chain, and whether that's for stable coins or everything else, I don't know. But just curious, like, how the fuck do we bet on this in a clean way? Other than if we don't want to hold a bunch of stable coins, obviously.
We need tempo in the private market.
We need something, dude. Where's the hyperliquid pre-market for this?
It's really hard to make a bet. I've been looking at Circle a little bit, which that was one of my better trades of the cycle. We talked a ton about just being short Circle. That was as good of a layup as you're ever going to get.
It's at $60 now.
I was looking at this and doing some math and some work. I would be really interested in it in the 20s. So we got some ways to
Got
go.
some ways to go. Okay.
There's interesting things with Tether that you could look at, like XAUT, and get some gold exposure. I don't know. That's not really like a direct bet on Tether. It's hard. I think you have to be in the private markets, and I think it's a really saturated space, and we're late. It's hard to express a view outside of figuring out, what applications or what other projects may benefit from stablecoin adoption skyrocketing. A lot of love for Layer Zero today. They partnered with Tether. That could be a way to express that view. They have an announcement coming here in 4 hours.
I am holding some Layer Zero.
Yeah, I have a small bag of that too.
But yeah, it's tough. It's tough. There's not like a clean way to make this bet on a publicly traded token or market right now. I don't feel like, even if we all feel super strong about it, which sucks. Goes back to what we were, I don't know if we were complaining about last week, but the whole, companies just wait forever to IPO, or all the gains go to the private investors these days.
It's interesting that you brought up Circle Stock. They were on my radar last week as well. I don't know if you guys saw that rent a human protocol that allows AI agents to create job board for humans. Humans can take on their task rabbits for these agents. It's kind of tongue in cheek, whatever. But then the next day, Jeremy Allaire basically said, "Okay, I'm vibe coding like our own agentic dashboard, job board rather, that will run on USDC." And like something like that, I think could actually be really big. And if they actually lean into that and are able to operationalize it fairly quickly, I think that becomes very interesting for Circle beyond their kind of core business. So if they innovate in the agentic commerce space, and they should, they're very incentivized to with USDC, I think we could perhaps have some higher premiums. So I'll be watching them closely. I mean, Deez, you mentioned some protocols, some TGEs. I do want to get into this. So I think one of the trends or themes from this past week is these tokens are launching, and they are launching at valuations we haven't seen in years. So Infinex launched. The Infinex token is trading at a $25 million market cap, $125 million FDV. The Rainbow Wallet token launched. It's trading at a $6.6 million market cap, $32 million FTV. I mean, we're not even blinking at memes running to this market cap.
No, the Rainbow one is crazy too, because when they put out that, they put something out to like acquire Clanker or something before Clanker got acquired by Coinbase, and the price of Clanker like shot up that day. And the price that Clanker was at that time is like higher than the FDV of Rainbow now, which is very hard to believe. But also at the end of the day, it's like, what is the point of the token? Like, I feel like we're at a point where people are more like looking for flows and, revenue that goes to buybacks or plans for these tokens. And if that's not a flywheel that's available, people just don't seem super interested, especially when it's more of like a tech or product play that has no meme potential.
It's like, show us the revenue, show us your documents tying some automated buybacks to the token, and then we'll talk.
And I don't necessarily think that is like, I mean, right now that is the model the market currently rewards the most, and maybe that is the most rational model. But I don't think for every token ever that is what makes the most sense. But I think like in terms of the market right now, the market is pricing those tokens like way higher, or they're pricing the tokens that don't have it way lower.
But I mean, couldn't someone apply the same logic to like Layer Zero? So I'm not an expert in their ecosystem. Are they using revenue to do buybacks, or like what's the justification for 1.76 billion on Layer Zero?
Yeah, I think the revenue is pretty low last I checked. They had some days it spikes over 100, 200K, but in general it's low, and I don't I'm not sure on the buybacks.
Seems like they're going to be launching their own chain based on all the rumors from this morning.
Yeah, there was like a leaked video that got taken down. The price has done the classic like announcement of an announcement pump and then retrace, and then
Mhm.
it's it got down to like $1.30, I think, with last week. I remember looking at it because I started buying it, I think at like $1.70, $1.80, bought some at $1.90. And then last week it was like $1.30. I was like, holy shit, like what what happened? But then it kind of rebounded a bit and now is selling off again. I think the one thing I do like about Layer Zero is it looks bottomed, and I know that there's still like emissions from investors, but like I do feel like they've sold enough at significantly higher prices that like I can tell myself just based off the chart and some of the fundamental stuff coming up that it's a good opportunity compared to other stuff. You know, it doesn't have that long period of consolidation and exhausted buyers.
Yeah, I would agree. It looks bottoms. I mean, catching bottoms on alts is not always the
No, it's
easiest thing. I think Layer Zero one of the stronger teams out there.
and
It's
it's
got
another one.
there.
I mean, they've been around for forever. Everybody who's invested in them can only say good things about Brian and the work ethic of the team. Um, I think they are well positioned in a world where you have people using all sorts of chains to capture some of the flow as people have to cross transact.
We'll definitely be watching for the announcement later today. And I think the other launch
30.
this week is have you been playing around with Mega ETH?
So yeah, yesterday I saw the rabbit hole and I saw a couple of the tokens you went and shared in another chat. And when I found out I couldn't buy them on FOMO when I was rocking the baby, I didn't get a chance to go back to my computer and ape in. But it does seem like I, I don't know. I didn't see anything that was like jumping out as like, oh, I need to like get in and buy it. It was more just like, oh, here's this like super funny cheap meme.
Mhm.
Maybe I need to check some other group chats I have muted and see what they're up to. But did you deposited, bought some of the memes, and then I'm assuming just like took a break? Like you didn't. Is there anything super exciting that you ran into?
Yeah, I looked around a little bit. I use Kumbaya, which is their trading platform. I think my read and Brett has said this himself. Like it's going to be like a slower cook. Like they launched with a few apps. They held back a few additional apps from launching this week to either make sure they're ready or to perhaps do a more staggered rollout. And they're not trying to do like the blast, like FOMO, like get your money on chain first as fast as you can, so we can run this thing up. Like it appears to be like, okay, like here's some things to do. Take your time, start playing around with the chain. Right. I think a lot of it's been DeFi related use cases and things to do. I do like how they have this new trend of these infrastructure chains, L1, L2s having like these landing pages. I think it is really nice. So you to do. So I think right around the corner is where this starts getting interesting. This is like the next wave of apps. I think there's some folks waiting on Euphoria, just kind of like a version of a kind of a prediction style game. World Markets is another one I've seen. So I think we'll see some action around those. And then, of course, the mega token itself will be tied to some of their KPIs, which I thought was an interesting approach where they're not going to do the airdrop. They're not going to roll out the token until they get their APIs across the board, which I thought was a novel approach. And I think more folks will likely copy that in the future, though I think maybe the KPIs were a little too low. We'll see. We'll see how quickly they are able to hit them. I haven't checked in on the mega token. How's it doing? So it's kind of hanging out this $1.3 billion range. Is that where Monad is? Oh wow, Monad's significantly higher now. They had been trading pretty in line there for a while. So Monad's still hanging out at 2 billion. That's kind of impressive. TBH, given I think the amount of mind share.
Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed that. As an investor in both, I wouldn't have guessed that.
And the one that's like shockingly low, I guess it's the market's rough, but it's been pump, right? Like Peter kind of went there.
Yeah, I pump's tough. I mean, I hold a little bit. Feel like we bring it up pretty often. I I've thought, for a long time, I've talked about this on the show, but like I thought their moat wasn't sustainable. I thought other people would just make the same thing with lower fees, and that was very, not true. They've had a moat the whole time. So I don't know with the token. I'm still holding a bit. I still think about buying a bit when I go look at the metrics. Like if I want to bet on Solana, I'm probably going to buy Pump rather than Sol. But I don't really want to make a bigger bet on Solana right now. So it's tough.
And the metrics are great. The Solana meme market is very alive. This past weekend maybe a little cooler, but there's a $100 million runner the week before that. It seems like there's been some off and on, and they're still running those buybacks. So it's been a little surprising. Clearly, there's some big sellers in that token, but it does feel like
Yeah, and
eventually.
the unlocks haven't started yet. The unlocks for Pump TGE was in June, I think. So that's another thing I do think about with Pump is like these earlier investors got in, sub 200 mil. They're gonna get these unlocks, even if it's one bill. Like you're up a nice 5x plus, depending on when you got in. Like they're gonna sell. They're not gonna. I mean, I think they're gonna sell. So I'm kind of worried about that, and that's another reason I don't want to like make a big bet on Pump for 2026. Just because I am thinking about the unlocks that are gonna come in June. I think it's June.
That actually makes any late Q1, Q2 buys pretty tough.
Yeah, I haven't.
Is it June or is it August? Did that token really launch in June?
I have to look it up. I know it was over the summer.
All right, yeah, it was early July. So
okay, yeah. I mean, last year was a blur for me with the baby stuff, but yeah, it's somewhere around there.
We will certainly.
I mean, I am paying attention to that hackathon they're doing where they're investing money into projects in their ecosystem. I'm definitely very curious to see who they choose for that. I think I have a couple bags. We'll see how they do. But like I don't feel like there's that much exciting stuff for them to invest in under 10 mil. So I'm curious what they end up choosing.
That is going to be an important one to watch because they'll be investing at 10 million. I am very curious, like if they pick a token that's at like $1 million, are they still investing at 10 million? I'll be curious if they add any more color to that, or by default, are they only taking tokens that are somehow higher than that threshold?
I don't think there's enough tokens above that threshold for it to even be interesting.
Yeah.
They're putting 250K into each. I don't know. I feel like if they only put into stuff over 10, it's like not nearly as interesting. But maybe I'm just biased from the bags I've bought that are under 10.
Before we close out, anything else you're trading or watching these days? I know you're on. You've got some phone time when the baby's sleeping on the shoulder.
Yeah, I'm just spending a lot of time going on FOMO, and then I'm spending a lot of time talking to Claude about Pokemon cards, which is not the most fun, interesting thing to say I'm using Claude for. But I'm just trying to find discrepancies between like English and Japanese pricing and buy the cheaper Japanese cards that I really like the art on that I don't really care as much about the words on. And Claude's been really helpful for that.
Yeah, we all got to find our own use cases.
But yeah, that's been my like guilty pleasure. I'm like, oh, I got like 20 minutes, so I just buy. There's this artist who has like 300 plus cards, and I'm trying to collect every card he's made. So that's been a fun thing of just like open up my list and go through and see what is listed, and buy a couple cards here and there. And I think right now I have like 120 of them or something. But it's been fun. It's also just way cheaper way to get a dopamine fix. Like I could pull open FOMO and just incinerate $1,000 on like a open claw token, or I can buy 20 of these cards for like $1 to $30 a piece and just get be even happier.
Return to Pokemon.
It's just you got to keep yourself stimulated.
Real quick, have you been following that BZ app? I saw they did like they had like $1 million.
Yeah, they're kind of blowing up. I thought they were on Flow for a while. I was surprised to see they weren't on Flow. I think they were on Flow, they migrated to Base, and now they are one of the bigger gotchas on Base. I know they got me to try the app for the first time because of the OpenSea rewards. They were giving out like claw vouchers for like, I don't remember, it was like $25 claw or whatever. But yeah, I mean, they have like a $250 and a $50 option. I don't think they have the high end gotchas that are like 1,000 or 2,500 like some of these other platforms, but they are getting a lot of volume. I don't know if people are farming it for a token, if they're farming it for future base token, if they're super stoked about getting the cards.
Probably a combo.
Yeah, I haven't used their marketplace. Maybe I should go look. I think that's one thing I need to use Claude Code for is I need to make like a fucking aggregator of all these different graded crypto Pokemon card platforms. Because trying to find the best deal on these cards across all venues is a pain in the ass. And trying to place bids on them is even more of a pain in the ass.
Yeah, that's a good use case. Well, I think we went around the horn for today. We're at the top of the hour. So producer Charlie, let's go ahead and do our spin. Let's pick a winner. And as always, this will be our $500 Yeet giveaway. Did bronze tier, I believe, for those who entered. Let's go ahead and give it a spin. Jaeger. All right. I don't recall seeing that name, at least for a while. So I think that is a newer winner. Our team will coordinate with you offline to get you over those $500. Congrats, you have won. I want to thank our listeners, as always, for tuning in. Dees, Peter, thank you for joining us. We'll be back next Tuesday. Until then, have a great week, everybody. Goodbye.